of it we don't get until November or December. Um, what? There, I don't. Yeah, it's just it. I think I might have just booked it. I might have hit the wrong account line, but it's in there. Those are in there. But like the meals and rooms, we don't get till later.
Yep.
The highway block grant, we won't get the rest till the end of this month or November. So a lot of it we don't get till the end of the year.
Yeah, it's just something that we were concerned about at the last meeting, and we said we were going to review it. Anybody have questions about revenue projections? All right. So on the for the department reviews, we have Recreation and Parks, Human Services and Social Services, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals. We also are going to take a look at the library one tonight. There was a communication issue, and they are here to present their budget. And since they are here to present their budget, they were supposed to present on October 16th. We'll take them this evening. And they have asked to go first. Is there any concerns if they go first from anyone who's presenting this evening? You're up.
Page is that on?
What?
What page is that? Page in front and back.
It is number 4550. So that is the line item, 4550.
Hi, good evening. I think what I tried to do this year is keep everything flat. So the operating budget, which includes everything we spend on supplies, books, programming, all the library things, is flat. In some cases, I got rid of things to make sure it was flat, maybe picked up another thing. But I kept it that way. And we're asking for a 3% COLA across the board for staff, and those are the only changes in this year's budget. It is. Yeah, I guess the town was at 2.6, and I was basing it on numbers I saw online. So I didn't know it was 2.6 until Monday, first of all. And there was some discussion whether they were going to go with the 3.2 or 2.6.
And that hasn't been determined yet either, so it's going to mess up the numbers potentially. Okay.
So at Monday's select board meeting, we took a look at the Northeast Consumer Price Index. I did send that link so that all the select board could see what the data we're looking at. And that is more in line with the 3 to 3.5, depending on whether it's a city or a town, is what that data is showing, and that's from the U.S. Department of Labor. So that's what we've been looking at the wage matrix committee of where to pick the COLA.
Yeah, I guess the other question I would have, just from a paperwork standpoint,
I can change that and make. The library is a separate entity, and it was done a few years ago.
So just bear with me a little bit, because I'm trying to catch up.
Sure, yeah.
From there, so, and have we not given two department heads already a 3% COLA? Was it 2.6?
No, well, selectmen approved 2.6, and that's what's figured in here at the moment.
Can you make sure you speak into your mic, please? Thank you. Are there any other questions for?
And I'm gonna ask questions because I only feel as though that's the only way our voters are gonna know. We can't just rubber stamp or just glaze over.
Absolutely.
So for my clarification, if you don't mind, what is library budget transfer line?
So the transfer line is our operating.
Okay, that's what you guys call it, okay.
That's what the town calls it.
That's, sorry, the town, correct. I just wanted to make sure that's,
We should get, at some point, we should get a copy of that.
We have that. We have that. I just need to send it out to everyone.
Okay. I will say it's nice to see that it's a minus percentage rather than a plus percentage, so that's very well done.
Well, it's really flat. I think it's a $57 difference or something like that.
Well, this shows 14% minus, so anyway, it's nice to see it right there.
Keep in mind that health insurance isn't in there and disability because we don't have the new rates yet.
So the disability at 0 and the health insurance at 0?
Yeah,
Is-
once I get the rates, I was told the middle of this month, then I can calculate it better.
Would it be worth having a number in there as a
I
placeholder?
can put last year's.
Yeah, we should have
Just for
last year's
clarity, yeah.
values, because that, it looks like it's a,
Looks like they don't have any disability.
well, it also looks like they're down, so if we're looking at the bottom line, it doesn't, and with the adding those values of last year, your budget is up 1% up, so it's pretty much flat, like, yeah. Any other questions? We will get that transfer information, and
Okay,
if we
and
have questions, if, we may ask, but I think, do you have any, so
I'll make
we
that-
know the transfer line, I know John's gonna explain the transfer line to us, so, he might do that next week, or when he gets here this evening, but,
And I'll make that COLA change too and send Anne Marie the paperwork on it.
yeah, that's fine, and then if you can distribute that to everyone.
Yes.
Any other questions from anyone? Nope.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Parks and Recreation.
Hello, everyone. This is Will McCauley. He's our camp director and is going to be working at the camp all year round, 4 hours a week. So I wanted you to meet him. I was hoping just to spend a minute or two and go over the things that the rec department's done during my tenure.
Yeah.
And it's the committee, and if it goes more than 2 minutes, you can tell me to shut up.
No,
How's that?
I think on behalf of the whole budget committee, we're very sad to see you go. You've done a great job with the park and the recreation, and we're
Thank you.
all gonna miss you.
Thank you. It was, it was tougher than I thought to leave, but it's the right thing for my family, so.
Yep.
So you don't mind if I,
No.
Okay.
Please.
so I go back to 2016 when I started part-time, even less part-time than I was, but, so my committee, our committee did this together. This is not just me, obviously. The fences around the playground and the beach area at the rec center. There's a new playground at the rec center, relatively new. New equipment for Stepping Stones Playground. The new field on Wadley Point there in Main Street. We've had 4 Eagle Scout projects done. Fire pit, a gaga ball pit, putting some steps in, restoring a building, putting a canoe rack up. Just this past year, the inside of the building was all painted to freshen it up. We have more signs and labels and such around the rec center and for people to see going by. We've established a revolving fund to help to improve programming. We've increased the number of campers and thus the contributing to the revolving fund. So we average about 60 or 61 campers a day for 8 weeks. The lockers for the counselors were moved into the staff room for more privacy for them. The multi-play court, which is the asphalt 60 by 100, I think, just went in, and that'll be, even though some people say it's the pickleball court, it's not. It's courts for pickleball as well as other things, shuffleboard or foursquare or whatever people want to play. So we just got rain barrels to collect water, so to save water, especially during drought times, that it'll fill up there and we can use that to water plants and things like that instead of using the water. Put in changing stalls for the campers, that was a while ago. Pickleball is played every day. There's 70 players signed up right now, over half of them are from Kingston. We have courts at Swayze at the moment until whenever that goes away, but that's increased the participation. We have a vestibule outside the camp which was started because of COVID to kind of screen people, but that's proved to be very helpful. Trunk or treat has gone from being 25 kids or so to almost 1,000 probably last year, and there's still room to get a trunk if you want to get a trunk. No? Okay. You could talk to us after. The adult Easter egg hunt raised $1,900 last year, $1,800 the year before. We've had nights out for kids and for parents. We've brought events back to the rec center. That's very important to me and the committee, that we do things at the rec center, not at the Plains, not other places, so people begin to know that that's where recreation takes place, that it's not here. We used to have things at the town hall and the fire station, but just kind of centralizing everything. Zumba is going on. We've had ukulele concerts that raise money. We use Serve with Liberty to improve and clean the rec center every spring. We've had senior lunches at local restaurants, which are very popular and help local restaurants, as well as a great outing for seniors. We are able to use a van from Brentwood now. It took a while, but we got there. So the director now can go and take a small group of people out rather than trying to fill a 55-person bus, which is very difficult to do. So that's exciting, where it can be small trips to do, whatever. We've had educational presentations from Fish and Game. We put up the Christmas tree at the gazebo every year. We've had craft nights. It's an outdoor basketball / pickleball court up there that's been there for a little while. Outdoor hoop at the rec building. Those are the ones I could think of. So I just wanted to thank you for letting me run through that.
All right. So pretty much everything except for one item is pretty flat in your budget.
Yep.
And this is increasing from 16 hours to 24 hours, correct? For the salary.
Right. 16 to 20, yeah. Did you want me to tell you why?
Well, go, please.
Okay. So we're the only town around here that doesn't have at least one full-time recreation director. And like I showed here, we've done a lot with a little bit of time, and I think we could do a lot more with more time. And I think we've shown that we can get that going. So I think it's important to get more hours and more things going on for people of all ages, especially adults, where we do a lot of things for kids, but I think we need to do as much as we can for adults of all ages. So like I said, I think that's important to have more hours, which means more programming, more fun, more, and that is generally fueled or paid for with the revolving fund. It doesn't come up with extra money, because there's more events. It doesn't, usually they're self-sustaining, so.
Yeah, I think you've done an incredible job with your programs and being self-sustaining the programs that they pay for themselves with the revolving fund.
Yeah.
And this is probably, the first time we've seen a jump in your budget in a few years.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Actually went down last year,
It did.
quite a bit.
It did.
Yeah,
Right.
for a rec run, anyways.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
Do you have an idea of, you have the revolving fund, and I assume once the summer is over, you kind of close that out for like, the payroll, the kids and all that stuff. Okay. Do you, I'm talking to you don't have any idea what's in that account, or we started on January 1st? About it.
Do you know, Paula? I don't know.
I'll just wait until the end of the quarter because I have to
Right.
move taxes around, but I can get that to you.
Yeah, just as,
That quarter just ended yesterday,
Right.
whenever, 30th, so.
I think the camp last year made 17,000,
Yeah,
something like that.
just camp,
So,
but there's more in that account than that.
yeah,
right, and I guess asking the question is, the fact is that the fund is there, and the money comes in, however it comes in, and if there is a particular project that comes up, or something that may not fit in the budget, I think you can use some of that money.
right,
You're gonna go paint the building again, something
Right.
like that, so it's just good for us to all know that extra is there, or if there was something here which isn't, it jumps out and says,
Right.
maybe we could use the 5,000 for that particular purpose.
right. Yeah, and we always do that as a committee and talk to if it's anything big, certainly we talk to our,
It's been kind of gaining a little bit every year, and it's kind of stayed level. Depending on how many councils you need and all that sort of stuff. And you're not gonna raise the rates this year?
I think we probably will need to, because the field trips have really gone up quite a bit, as well as the buses have gone up quite a bit. So nothing major. I was thinking maybe $10 a week for both. Nothing, and we're still well below like Camp Lincoln and other camps around. So we're still a pretty good deal.
You stay pretty much full all summer?
Yeah, I mean,
Give or take a week.
4th of July is usually a pretty quiet week. The day after the 4th is not a lot, and sometimes the day before. But I would say we're around 60, 61, something like that. And we're going to do we're going to use the same camp doc, the online registration, but we're going to set it up differently. So I think that will help track who's coming and getting more kids in, because I hate to see kids I'm not really looking to make money. It's nice that we do, but it's trying to get as many, especially Kingston residents, in there as we can. So I don't like to see us having only 45 kids come one day when there's other kids that want to come. So the new way we're going to set it up will help that.
And just give more information on that. You must offer some scholarships to kids?
Not too many people have asked, but there's a program called Are You In? And I think it's gone through UNH maybe, but they basically do the vetting to see if people, because I've always found it difficult to say somebody says they don't have enough money for camp. And for one thing, we'll let them do a payment plan, whatever they need to do. But if they come, it's kind of hard to know, well, how much should we give them any? How do we know they really need it? How much do they need? That kind of thing. So this program, which we haven't tried yet, does the vetting and tells you, so if they have this card called Are You In, then that means that they are eligible for help with camp. But we haven't had that many requests, and I think it's partially because we're so cheap. It makes it a pretty good deal.
I don't see him turning on and off. He's got a bigger voice, right? He leaves it on. I'm only kidding. If you could explain a little bit more about the revolving fund.
Okay.
Because I can hear a few questions now. If you're turning back 17,000 and you're suggesting maybe they could do a different project, I can see red flags going all over the place. If they're returning money, I get that the selectmen have the authority to do that, but then you start moving if they're returning. So that's why I want to know about the revolving fund, what that does. Goes back to the general.
No, the revolving fund is a different setup.
Okay, it's not. No.
It's not a part of revenue, it's actually under the, so there's a handful of revolving funds that we have.
Oh, that
we don't have it's not considered revenue, it doesn't go back to the general fund. The reason it's revolving is money goes in and goes out. Depending on how the revolving fund is set up, it goes to the select board for use or not, but it is not considered revenue, it doesn't go back to the general fund. It's constantly used for a specific service. I think the only revolving funds that are allowed are recreation, recycling, library, ambulance,
fire, and then a separate one could be for fire, and and then
there's some
one
very
more, and I just can't think
stringent
of it.
laws about what money goes in and what money comes out of the revolving fund. I can get you more information about the
I
technicalities.
personally know about them. So here, let me just make this blanket statement. This is what I've found in the short amount of time of being here and history of dealing with it. It's not explained enough, and I'm not saying you haven't, but there's not clear explanation out there. So people wonder, and that's exactly what kind of like, oh, it's coming in, it's coming out. It's the selectmen turn, the departments turned it back, gave it back to the selectmen. How come we don't see it? That isn't always what the perception of most citizens, Should they educate themselves about it? Yes, they should. But are they getting it back when the selectmen, have it? Yes, but it's not. So that's why clarification of what revolving funds are, and does the selectman have the right to say, the taxpayers are gonna go, oh, if you have $17,000, which he used as an example, and you could do this, why aren't you doing this? So I think in the overall is, in the budget process here, is more clarification of what certain things are. I'm not afraid to ask the questions and look like the bad person. Doesn't bother me at all. But I think it helps because you can't stand behind something and explain it to somebody if they themselves don't know what it is. Am I making sense to you? That's why.
I think we sometimes forget because we understand what it is, what a revolving fund is, what these things are, and so we sometimes forget to explain the limitations of a revolving fund or certain funds. So I appreciate, we are being broadcast and people can watch this. As you can see, we have all this public people show up for our meetings. But if people wanted to, they could watch this and find out that we are going through the budget line by line and looking at and talking to department heads and asking about funds, and we do. Thank you for bringing it up, because we do know we've done this for a little bit and we've dug into the data prior to the departments coming here, and so it's nice to explain you have a revolving fund or this and how it's used. And
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, it's used in small doses for things that the budget's already been used for. So you can, I'll give you an example. For Easter this year, for trunk or treat this year, there was concern all around that there was some safety issues last year because there were so many people there. So we put a lot of things in there, one-way traffic and 2 police officers instead of 1, and different parking and a crosswalk and all this stuff. But we also bought these necklaces, they're glow-in-the-dark necklaces, because parents were saying they had trouble seeing their kids, because, I mean, it's Halloween, it's supposed to be dark, so, you can't light up the whole place, but you don't want it to be unsafe either, so, but that cost $500, and that was almost all our budget, and we had to spend on other things, so that's the kind of thing that comes up that you don't necessarily foresee in the budget, but it's nice to be able to tap into it, and I would never spend more than, that's even probably a lot, unless we really needed something. It's usually extra supplies for something, it's starting a new program. Really the problem is getting people out to programs. We're not wasting money on it. We want to get more people out there and more people coming to the rec center doing things, Zumba, there's great exercise programs every Monday night. Just trying to find those kind of programs to come in to increase people, because there's still people that don't know we have a rec center or a rec department, or and just don't know about it. So and without the Carriagetown News, that certainly makes it difficult. But that's our job, is to try to get that out there. And sometimes that means spending a little money, and sometimes it goes over the budget. Most times it's within the budget. It's not. We're pretty frugal.
And I clearly understand. I wasn't trying to say that
No.
but as you said, they don't even know you have a rec center and a rec, some of the rec programs.
Right.
Then there's those that are going to go.
Right. Well, I mean, if there's a group of people that said, don't know we have it, and we want to do blah, 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 and if it was reasonable, we would do it. And if it required some of the revolving fund to get it going, and then if it turned out to be a great thing, we'd put it in the budget and get it out there so people are clear what we're spending the money on. But yeah, I'd love to have more people doing things. I love the fact that people are playing pickleball 7 days a week. It's amazing. And the social stuff they do there and meeting new friends, it's amazing. But, I want other programs to be like that. I'm moving to Plymouth tomorrow, so I won't be doing that, but I'm excited. I think the committee is awesome, and I'm very, very excited for that. Whoever is the new director, they'll just take over a great committee. So I'm sure there will just continue to be progress.
Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming, even though your last day was Friday. We appreciate it. This is it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Human Services.
I do have a last minute update. Sorry. Just the social service agency.
That is number, she's going to be looking at 4441, 4442, and 4445.
Hello, everyone. So for those of you that don't know, I have 3 budgets under me, under my department. There's the Human Services Department, which is kind of my baseline. I also have general assistance and social service agencies. For the Human Services Department, there isn't a significant change. The salary went up, but it's the same amount of hours. I'm still sticking with 20 hours. It's because of the COLA from last year. I under budgeted seminars last year, so I fixed it in this budget. And that's for the New Hampshire Local Welfare Administrator Association quarterly meetings. So that's the only changes there. For general assistance, I kept it pretty steady. The only thing I reduced was gasoline because I'm not giving out a lot of gas cards. That's for gas cards to give out to needy people, so I'm not giving a lot of those out, so I did reduce those. And then for those that aren't aware, New Hampshire state law says that if someone is poor and unable to support themselves, the town must help them, which makes it tricky to budget for because we don't always spend everything that's budgeted. But I did want to have a good cushion in there based off of past cases that have come in. So that's why some of that's unspent.
I just want to clarify on that point for people who, so that means that if Marissa were to go over her budget, that money would come from a different budget line item and is required by law to be spent. So there's no, so we try to budget appropriately so we don't need to borrow from other departments to give that amount of money, taking it away from another department or maybe another service that's not going to be provided because we are required by the state to do that. And just want to make sure we clearly.
It's actually, even if the town went over budget, we would have to find the money.
Correct. Yep. So if we had no money left, we would have to find the money someplace or emergency appropriations. Yeah.
Thank you. And then for social service agencies, I did tweak this a little bit. Looking at the new spreadsheet that I handed out, I updated the notes to what the social service agencies requested, just so you can kind of see a reference. For me, what I'm trying to do is, we do have limited funding, and I'm trying to make sure that I fund the agencies that can directly help my clients, which kind of takes a little bit of tweaking. I'm still kind of getting used to this here, but I did decide to change some of these around a little bit. The only new one is for Seacoast Mental Health, who the town used to fund years ago. They stopped putting in requests, and so we stopped funding them. I recently got a request from them to start giving them funding again. They requested $2,500. I'm suggesting and recommending $1,500, and let's see how it goes with them. But that is the only crisis mental health center that's near Kingston. It's in Exeter. And so I would like to fund them. We do have a gap in services. We don't have mental health services in town. We definitely are in need of that. And so this is the closest social service agency that we have that can fill that gap.
So is that, so you want that proposed in your budget?
I would like to put that in the budget,
but
yes. But it would need a warrant article, right?
Yeah.
So it should not show up.
Oh, that's right, thank you, that's right. That's right.
Not, we won't, now, when they get out of that, then let's say next year, or I think it's 3
Right.
years, they have to go for a warrant article.
Yeah.
Right,
You can add it back in, so for budgeting
Okay.
purposes.
okay,
And therefore, they're looking for 25, we suggested 15. They put in a petition, in a petition warrant article, they can put in whatever they want
sure,
at this point.
okay.
So, all right, so that also goes added, so it doesn't go into the bottom line budget, but it does count towards the 10%, that we cannot go over 10% of whatever is proposed.
I don't know if anyone had any questions?
Now, did you have a question on the Solrock one?
So Solrock,
You made a change, I didn't see that.
I did change that, yeah. They do provide a really valuable services. A lot of it is through the school system, and they do receive funding from the Sanborn School District. They receive $1,000 from Kingston. I'm not sure what they get from Fremont and Newton, but they do get $1,000 from Kingston already, is what I was told. I don't they will refer me to other services. I don't directly use them. I can't, she doesn't have services on her own that she directly offers. It's referrals.
So this was just a warrant article 2 years ago.
Correct.
For $6,333.
Right.
And it got voted in for 3 years in a row to be included on the budget.
It did.
And we can reduce it without any,
Yes, as far as I know, because we are giving them the money, we can decide not to give any money if we don't want to, or we can decide what the amount is, and then they could try to get a change to the deliberative session, et cetera, which they did 1 year.
but this was I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So we voted 3 years in a row to put $6,333 into our budget. The warrant article stated $6,333 for 3 years in a row. And that, I'm concerned that we can't, we voted on that number to include it in the budget for 3 years in a row, that do we have the ability to change that number if the voters have already voted on that?
I requested clarification from NHMA, and they said after that fiscal year is over, it's up to us to determine the amount, that we don't have to go back out to the voters to reduce it.
To reduce it.
Yeah.
We just have to go out to the voters to add it.
Yeah,
Right.
like CASA was $500 forever and ever and ever, and now they've requested $1,000 and settled
I
on
thought that was American Red Cross.
CASA 23.
Yeah. Oh, no, okay, CASA is,
CASA,
I'm sorry, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
You're looking at the
requesting more this
updated
year.
value, sorry.
So, I mean, the warrant, the original warrant was $500, and then we've stayed with the $500, but now we want to give them a little more, and they requested even more than that. So I think once the warrant has passed 3 years in a row, we can give
We
them
can
what-
change the
we can
value.
change it, yeah,
Because all of these at one point in time were.
No, I'm just,
yeah.
The warrant only goes for that 1 year, to request for us to pay them.
Yeah.
but then
services.
then it automatically goes in the budget at that warrant article.
Right,
That-
but it's not, it doesn't go to warrant article for 3 years.
Yeah, it does.
It does. All of them went to, so how it gets added to the budget, how a social service agency get added to the budget is the warrant article goes in front of the voters for 3 years in a row for the amount that they requested. And that amount is $6,333. And we voted for it for 3 years in a row, and it passed, which means it gets added to the budget, and then it gets added to the budget automatically. So if the voters have an understanding that they're adding the social services at this amount, if we are changing, adding, subtracting, whatever, I'm just asking whether it needs to go to the voters, or at least communicate that it has gone to warrant article for 3 years in a row.
Well, I think that with the warrant article, they could have asked for any amount of money. They could have changed it every 3 years, so.
Right.
During the 3 years. So I don't think, now that it's on the budget, I mean, it's in our
It's up-
budget.
It's
so
up
we
to
change
us.
it.
That's why it's important to go to meetings.
But you could also zero it out if you want. It's not a requirement after the 3 year of the warrant article. It becomes
Right,
a choice.
yeah,
Because we've done that, we've actually gotten rid of some.
right.
Pam, did you have a question?
Just about so wrong,
So,
Just a point of history, what happened was all the social service agencies were asking for money year after year after year. And at some point in time, we had 12, 15, 16, 20 different warrant articles, and the town was voting them all in year after year after year. And at that point, they decided it was just making the ballot too big. So if it had been consistently there for 3 years at any amount of money, if the town had voted for it for 3 years, then it would be put in the budget at that point of time and then go through the regular budget process. But the nonprofit organization wouldn't have to reapply by warrant article again, as long as we kept it in the budget.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for that history. Okay.
okay, any other questions?
What is one, Scott?
One Sky offers services for developmentally disabled children and adults. Yeah. And they put in a request last year, but it was too late to put in the budget. And I've attempted to reach out to them multiple times, and they're not calling me back, and they're not emailing me back. So I didn't.
How many years did we carry them before, or did we contribute before?
I'm not sure. I thought we had them for quite a long time. I don't have the full spreadsheet with all the years on there, but I thought we funded them for quite some time. Oh, I'm not sure about that. I didn't see that.
That was Richie McFarland, right?
Reggie McFarland, yep.
Yeah, Richie McFarland, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That might be the waypoint on that was Richie McFarland. Okay. This place is haunted.
All right, any other questions for Martha? No questions? Good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Merrill, Planning Board
4191.
Chair. So I learned a lot coming before you last year. I learned that if you don't spend your budget, you get punished by a reduction in budget. I learned that I came forward with all kinds of statistics and everything else about how the fact that Kingston was the second busiest community in planning as far as number of hearings that we heard here in the region, and yet still weren't able to have the support staff that we need in order to accomplish our mission and our job and do the right things for the town. So I didn't bring any statistics, and I'm just going to tell you, it is what it is. But there are a couple of things that are relatively important in this budget, and you're going to see that they are larger. For example, you'll see that the books is still zero, but I just authorized the payment for our books last night at our planning board meeting, so that will be, that money will be used. But the most important thing is contracted services. And you'll see that we're asking for $54,000, and a notice that I got last night actually shows that it may end up being more than that, unfortunately. But the reason for that is that the town is, it's highly recommended that the town update its master plan every 3 to 5 years. A master plan is the plan by which the town now has its mission, its priorities of what to fund, what not to fund, how we're going to grow as a town, how we're going to look as a town. It's really what every committee should be looking at when they start making decisions about our town. Kingston's plan was finalized in 2009. Most of the data in the plan was from the census of 2000. Very little data in the plan was beyond the year 2005. So we're 20 years out of date. And when you look at the original plan, as I did, you'll see that it talks about that we need to have some condominiums in town. We need to have over 55 housing in town. And we need to do this, and we need to, all things that we've accomplished and done, and also many things that we haven't. It shows the number of residents we have in town, the number of houses we have in town, all of which is dramatically outdated. Everything is, it's totally irrelevant. There's really no usefulness to this document at all. The current chapters in the master plan, and it's online if you want to take a look at it, but they're visioning, community facilities, existing and future land use, housing, natural resources, public utilities, transportation, open space,
historic and cultural resources. And all of those are old, with the exception of the last two. Open space was updated, I think, in like 2014-ish, I did know the number, it's gone. And the year, and the historic and cultural resources was after that. It's now recommended that we add an additional chapter. I just was informed of that last week, which would be solid waste, and how we're going to manage our solid waste facilities as a town. So the goal of the plan is to consider residents' opinions as we seek to outline a path for Kingston's future, to address the infrastructure that will be needed, and to best serve our residents in the manner that keeps intact the community that we enjoy. And it also helps plan for, set aside money for those future expenses. The planning board is under the impression, we have been told, that there are no grants available for updating a master plan. There are HOP grants available to make changes to zoning articles once the plan is updated, but there are no grants available for updating the plan. Once the master plan is completed, we can look at that type of plan to change the zoning to enact the master plan housing chapter in particular, which is extremely out of date. If the CIP committee recommends updating the master plan, and if the funding is approved by the budget committee, the select board, and the voters, then the planning board will begin the process to select a contractor to work with us through the process. There is no way that the current staff that we have can even begin to look at this plan and approaching this plan. You have to do a community survey to find out what's available, or people want in the community, how they want their community to grow. And that's the starting point for everything. So there's just absolutely no way that we at this point have the staff to even begin to approach this, nor does our staff have the expertise to do the job. So we're told that it's about $6,000 a chapter. So and it will take more than a year. So even though we have in the budget $54,000 for this year, probably that will be spent over 2 years, because it does take about 2 years to accomplish all of this. And so it's there. And we have it in the CIP plan as well as putting it in the budget, depending upon how you wish to move forward with it. And other than that, the two things that were cut last year, the $5,000 for engineering consultants and $5,000 for, what was it? For contracted services. We did not spend that again this year. If we do need to spend it, we will probably need $5,000. But you did cut the budget there last year, and this year we were able to squeak by without that. We do have 3 major plans coming before the town in 2025 that are going to take an incredible amount of time and effort, and may again require outside services, contracted services, and we may be using those line items at that time. It's again planning for it, so the money's there. If we don't spend it, as you know, it goes back to the town. It can be returned to the taxpayers or whatever, but they should be there in case it's needed. And I think that's about everything. The things you see at zero for the last few years are things that have been zeroed out because of changes to the way in which things are paid. Postage and such is now paid through the select office. The only other thing is the copier. Our copier was taken away from us when the office was moved. We still need it. We don't have it, so they make copies on weekends when nobody else is using it. So I think that's everything having to do with that. You may also ask about the CIP plan. The CIP plan we'd love to be able to present to you. It's important. It's something that you truly need for your decision making, and we understand that. The requests were sent out the first part of August, and they were due in the end of August, by August 30th. The select board had to, this time around, the select board had to approve the requests, which was really a good thing, because they are the people that should be enacting this and helping plan for all of this. And their meeting to do that was on the 26th, and they had to be in by the 30th, so a lot of them dribbled in late. The reason it's not ready and the reason the CIP committee has not met is because we are still missing one major department, and that department has had a whole list of items for 2025 that, one, that the numbers are out of date, and then secondly, we believe should be spread out, and we're still waiting for that department head to come forward with the information. Glenn Greenwood did meet with that department head last week to prod them along and gave whatever assistance he could, but was still lacking the information, and until we get it and have our CIP committee review it, bring it to the planning board for approval, we cannot get it to the selectmen for approval and to you. So it's being held up by a department. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Public Works. It's Public Works that we're waiting on. And that's your biggest department as far as capital expenses. So we really can't do anything until we know where they're at. Because it's a matter of balancing each. And then again, looking at the CIP plan. If you're looking at trying to do capital reserve warrant articles, you've got to know what these things are going to cost and what year they're going to come, so you know how much money to set aside, instead of just arbitrarily saying, oh, this year we're going to put 75,000 aside, or this year 100. You really need to know, okay, in 5 years, this thing is going to cost this much money, so we need to be setting this much money aside. Because the whole idea of the capital improvement plan is to spread things out over time. So.
The increase in the salaries, is that due to more hours or anticipating more hours? In the part-time salaries, from the 39 to the 40?
From the 39 to the 43?
Anticipating
I believe so, yeah.
more hours?
We're hoping so. Paulo, do you know why that increased?
Part of it is the COLA from last year, the full year worth.
Yeah.
And then the employee's pay rate went up until we can get it to be full-time.
Is there going to be another warrant article for that position this year?
You have to ask the selectmen.
They plan on putting it in until we get it.
It's a needed full-time position. It is absolutely needed. That office is not only supporting planning, but it's also assistance to zoning in historic district and code enforcement. It's integral to everything that's happening down there.
So my question, I don't doubt any of that, and I supported that. The concern I have is that when it's one of how we do business, when you go to the voters and ask them to approve something, and they vote it down, and then you go back and find money and do a workaround with transferring money for it, it's sort of disrespectful to the process.
But we didn't add any hours. I mean.
But did that person end up working more hours after the election?
No. No. And that's why we're so far behind. You know, we're correct.
So I
no.
just want to clarify, because we were
I
told.
was misled, and if I'm saying
Did she work
something
more
that's
hours?
wrong, I apologize.
So I just want to, we were told at an earlier budget committee meeting that the hours increased and the salary increased.
She is still part-time. What went to the warrant article was for a full-time position. We still have a part-time position, and the select board chose to raise her rate because she needs to work more hours. She's still part-time. She does not get any benefits.
So actually, what I would say is that's what's called a distinction without a difference. You went to the voters to approve a new job, and when they said no, you came up and spent more money. And when I say you, let me be impersonal. The town chose to do what was suggested and voted down in another way. I'm in favor of doing it, but my experience is that when one does those kind of things and ends up spending the money and giving the person the hours of compensation that they want anyway, that you want to minimize people's, faith, and make them a bit cynical about government. My point is this: you shouldn't have asked for a warrant. You intended to do this no matter what, and it was that important. You could have figured out another way to do it. That's all. That's the only thing I'm saying. And I'm not saying anything illegal about it. I just think it undermines this process of going to people for increased money, creating new positions. That's all.
I think the distinction that might be that the increase was going to include increased hours, increased wages, plus benefits. And I think at this point, she got a pay boost, but no benefits. So I think they didn't circumvent the intent of the warrant in total. Maybe, yeah, maybe partially, but I don't think it's an outright defiance of the people's vote.
All I'm saying is the better thing is not to ask for voter approval or something if you don't intend to honor and respect that. That's all I'm saying. It's just a question of how we do it. But if you come forward with it again, I'd like to support it because I agree with the underlying principles of all this. Once again, how would you do business? Disagree.
I mean, the difficulty is back in the, the Chuck Hannigan years, when he was selectman, when they put forward the warrant article to have every full-time employee come before the voters. So they instead hire lots of part-time employees instead of one full-time employee, so they accomplish the same thing in some ways, but don't get the benefit of having the consistency. And it's how some departments and some people suddenly got full-time employees without going to warrant is I don't understand how that happened, because I do know it's happened in some departments. I don't know how. I do know that, the firefighters are always coming forward with more because they need more and that sort of thing. But other departments haven't, and I don't know how it worked, but I do know that something, you can't manage an organization this size with your hands tied behind your back like that, because it isn't the best way to manage something. You have to have the flexibility. And I can't imagine that the townspeople would ever vote not to have this continue, but it's not a good way of managing government. And it was done in a knee-jerk reaction, when all of a sudden a lot of people got hired at once, and then that they put the warrant article in to have every full-time employee approved by vote, and it was because a number of full-time employees had come on at the same time. They had increased the budget a little bit, and people were upset about it. It's terrible having all the history. But
Lynn, can I ask you to review again how the master plan process will happen?
okay, so what happens is we hire a consultant, and then the first thing that happens is a survey goes out.
Okay.
They do the survey, they gather the information from the survey. But when you read the master plan, and I suggest you do that, you'll see that it's full of data. And all the data is totally out of date, completely out of date. The population data, the number of people in certain age groups, the number of houses, the number of types of houses, and more and more and more. The number of acres in conservation, the number of everything in that document is out of date.
And who gets included in the survey?
The townspeople.
Registered voters, property owners? How do they determine?
I do not know.
Okay.
I do not know. I just know that a survey is done.
Okay.
Most likely of townspeople, property owners, probably everybody. But a survey is done to gather the public information first. And then once that's there, and then they go through the data. And amassing the data is, we just did the hazardous mitigation plan, or the emergency whatever the mitigation plan was. And we just finished that. And that had just tons and tons and tons and tons of data, every road in town, whether it needs a new culvert in the next few years, whether it needs this or that, what's overflowing, what isn't overflowing. Tons of data just having to do with hazardous events that may occur in the town. And as a planner, I sat on that. And just gathering the data for that one department was an enormous undertaking. So now you're doing it for all these different entities, and it's huge. So, and then they pull that all together, and from that, now you can redo the vision and the mission, and then determine the path forward for the community.
And at what point do people vote on, do they vote to accept it, or we just vote to contract it?
I don't know. I don't ever remember voting to accept it.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Because if they come up with a master plan and it really doesn't suit the town's needs, then
well, if
is that $54,000 down the toilet? Well, we'll start with the 54,000.
Closer to 60. But having a master plan, not having one at all, is horrible.
Yeah.
Putting one together, it's the duty to make sure that it does reflect the townspeople's input.
Okay.
That's what's important, is you start with their input, and you make sure that whatever you do, you keep that at front of everything. And then you have the data, and move forward from there. I mean, when you take a look at the fact that our child population is so reduced, and our elderly population is so increased. So how do we as a community, what kinds of things are we going to have to include? Elderly population increased, more ambulance and fire, more ambulance services. Child's decreased, different types of things that you won't need anymore. So it's a matter of taking all of that input together and then determining what our needs are, and then does the town want to do those things? We'll have public hearings and that sort of thing to get, feedback before it's finalized. But I do not know if there's an official vote taken at town meeting.
Was there anything similar to that undertaken before they restructured the Sanborn School District with the school board?
They did not have master plans back in the 1960s.
No, I'm talking about like for the new school and the changing of the kids, like that go to Bakey or go to Memorial.
Oh, so in other words, when they restructured the way the pages were?
And when they built the high school,
No.
it was originally just a high school, and now it's a junior high school, senior high school.
I can answer that, yes,
Yeah.
they did. They hired a consultant that specializes in school districts, and they gathered lots of data. It was super helpful, forecasting 5-10 years out what we expect the population to look like, number of students, so it was super helpful for planning.
Yeah.
How old is that study, do you know, Pam?
That was about 4 years ago, but it helped them to decide, well, the school board to decide about reorganizing the facilities.
Okay.
And it provided the community with information so they understood why it was being done.
Thank you.
It was worth the money, I think.
Yeah.
Can we flip back to the CIP for a moment?
Put the
CIP,
Yeah,
go
let's
back.
go back,
to
sure.
talk. Can you explain to us what the committee, who's on the committee, and when do they meet?
Well, they meet once we get, they'll meet as soon as we get the data in from Public Works. They'll have an immediate meeting. So we have Barbara Ryan on that.
That would be me.
That's you. You're on that committee. Glenn Greenwood's on that committee. Robin Duguay, who's the vice chair of the board, is on that committee. And I think there's someone else. I think there's somebody else from planning board, I think, and somebody else. I think there's supposed to be 2 from budget. I'm not sure. But as soon as
There's supposed to be.
I think there's supposed to be 2 on budget. I think there's supposed to be 2 on planning, and Glenn Greenwood is the coordinator of that. And normally we have the meeting well before now, but it's held up.
I have seen no minutes of meetings?
Oh, because we haven't, see, the CIP plan fell apart during COVID.
Oh, no offense.
No offense,
Okay.
and that seems like everybody's excuse. And we
It
finally,
is.
I know, it's terrible, but it did. And during COVID, I don't know if you were aware of that, but during COVID, we were also, as the planning board, working very heavily on 266 Route 125 and getting that approved. And we had 2 or 3 meetings a month on that. So our office was overburdened between the two. And to be honest with you, we missed a year. And then I have no idea where the minutes are.
There are none.
There are none?
There
Okay.
are none. There are no posts about a meeting. I guess my concern in,
I would say they're somewhere in the planning office, probably in the computer somewhere.
well, I spoke with the girl in the planning office, and she said as long as she's been there, there's been nothing.
Which is 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 years is a lot. I couldn't find anything anywhere.
Or a year and a half, I guess.
Aren't the minutes always filed also with the town clerk?
Something like that, yeah.
Question is, there hasn't been any meetings to have any minutes to be filed.
That's, I think, what
I think
you're
that's,
trying to get at.
Yeah.
When I was being a selectman back in the budget committee, John, you were assigned for the CIP, and somebody else at that time, and they never met.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I was the budget committee representative since he brought it up. I've never had a meeting.
So last year, I
But
don't know,
wouldn't you-
last year I pushed on it, and I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and it didn't get done before budget season. I think it got done like in January, and I have no idea when they met, but I've been pushing this year. I pushed to get everything out in July so that you'd have everything before tonight. My plan, when I did my schedule, was to have everything here. And I'm also a believer in decisions have consequences, and if you don't get your budget in, or your stuff in, then maybe there are consequences to that.
well,
But,
Like what?
like, maybe we just don't use your stuff, you don't put your stuff in the plan.
So let's look at I was afraid that's what you're gonna say. So the people who suffer in that situation, the people of Kingston.
Yes, absolutely. So we have to wait.
So
We have to wait.
well, I guess,
Until it's done.
so also where I'm going is, I have a copy of the CIP, which, thank you, I don't know, I think it was you who got it for me, but, or, doesn't matter. And I looked through the whole process of what a CIP, and I've been on CIPs, and I guess that's where I'm going with this, going, what? Like, makes absolutely no sense. This is a vital document that's supposed to come from the planning board to budget, selectmen, all of the above. I go to see what I can find out about it, because I sent an email looking forward to working on the CIP and got 0 response, which that just set me off even more. So when I say, well, how do they come up with the capital expenditures? Like, where are these numbers coming from? I can't find it. Okay, so I go and inquire, and I find there's this form that Kingston Capital Improvements Program.
Yeah.
It gets sent out to the department heads according to, and committees according to the CIP prelude. On the bottom of it, and I don't mind copying it, and I'm sure everybody can find one, it's meeting with Board of Selectmen, date of meeting. So, is each department head meeting with their liaison?
No, they had to meet with the board.
Well, on the bottom of it, it says Board of Selectmen Chairman's signature. So, are these submitted with their budgets? I mean, where?
Those were submitted to us, and this is the first time that they required a select board permission, approval.
So this is pretty
So that
standard
extended-
every year except this little corner.
That's the first time that form has been done. Somebody did that form this year, last year, I don't know, but the form is new.
So so this was.
Because we were all surprised. When I went to Susan, when I received it, I said, okay. Glenn said to me, we better put the master plan on that. I said, okay, we should do that. So I got the form, I filled it out, I took it down to Susan, and I said, here's for the selectmen meeting, which was, they only meet twice a month in the summer. So that was for their first meeting in the summer. And she said, oh, they have to sign that? We've never done that before. So it's sort of a new process going on, and that tied things up a little bit longer because it's new and not everybody got them in on time, and they didn't all get done.
So that, if it's a new process, how did we get to the numbers for the expenditures on the CIP? I was told
So can you clarify for the individual departments?
for,
For the entries, there's all sorts of
There's
stuff
all
in
sorts
there.
of-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the
Yeah.
planning board, for the individual, so.
no, for the individual departments. And, well, yes, the planning board should be in here for the master plan.
Right.
You can't just whip 54,000 out of the air and go, where did that come from?
Exactly.
And then again, farther down the process. So this information had to have come somewhere.
It came from the department heads and went to planning and was compiled in planning.
So did Mr. Greenwood meet with the department heads, and that's how we got these
They
numbers?
turned the forms in.
Oh, I thought you said this form is a new process.
No, no, they received those forms, they filled out those forms,
Thank you.
and they turned them in. And they've been processing them into a spreadsheet for us, but we're still waiting for the last one so that the committee can meet.
So it is my understanding you have a committee for CIP. A department head should go to that committee with this and give justification to your CIP committee and recommend or not, because I can tell you right now, I can't support anything on here because I can't find any documentation in reference to yays, nays, how it came about. It's disturbing that this document that they make well aware of is so important. If we can't do this right, how the heck are they gonna do a master plan right? Contract it out? I can't support doing a master plan till we get this straight even. It's information that everybody wants to know, and they're gonna look to us for the information. How do you feel about it? What are you talking, just like I did. What are you talking about? What is this? It makes no sense to me. Just my opinion.
I sat on the CIP committee 1 year, everything was presented to me in a spreadsheet. They gave us the justification that had been given to planning by the department head, and
And they
approved it.
I'm not doubting.
And it was a very simple process, and it was done in one night, and that's all I know, because I came into the process as a newbie.
Yeah, and well, I can tell you, it's not a simple process. There should
Yeah.
actually be meetings. They should be posted.
Yeah.
You could, if you wanted to, I haven't looked up too many RSAs on it, it's because I'm still overwhelmed with it. Have on your committee a citizen that's not on a board, but input is important. People may or may not want to visually see what's going on. But it's huge, and in here, it says the process in his own diagram, that in his description is how the whole process is supposed to work, and it's not, it's,
Yeah, I've never seen that, to be honest with you.
really? Pass it down.
No, it's
Well, no,
I can get a copy.
It's important, you're the planning board chair.
I know, and I've never seen
And
it.
I don't mean any disrespect, I'm just like,
No.
okay, unfortunately, the buck stops with you, and we're gonna pick on you.
And that's fine.
Right.
I'm a big girl, I can
That's
take it.
okay.
So this was prepared for the planning board
Last year.
Yeah.
February, this year.
This
This year in
It was
February.
very late,
After-
very late.
After deliberative.
So I
You're
saw-
unaware of this?
Oh, I saw that, yes, but I didn't see was your process.
Yeah, so I think,
Part of it.
I think the concern is that that was put together after the deliberative,
Absolutely.
which then we don't,
It makes
we
it
have
useless.
no, it's useless, because what happens is those numbers in there did not align with the budget. And that is not how we should be moving forward. So whatever numbers they put in there. And I think what we're trying to say is please work with us to make sure that doesn't happen again.
And that's what we tried to do this year.
Yes.
Because I was furious that it took that long. And so when I planned this year, I said, first meeting in April, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna work on the CIP plan, this is a schedule that we're gonna follow, so it's done and it's ready.
Yeah.
But we have, as a planning board, we have no authority over any of the department heads.
Yeah.
So we cannot force anyone to give us anything.
However, if you had the committee and your selectmen reps were on your CIP committee, they could go back and say, hey, board, guess what? We got this
So it
department
sounds like
head not
perhaps the
working."
recommendation is that the CIP committee be restructured.
Well, it doesn't need to be restructured, it needs to be activated and
Well,
used
I mean,
appropriately.
if we really wanted to be picky, we could say capital funds are zeroed out until we have a capital improvement plan that's
Exactly.
approved.
Exactly. Actions have consequences.
It's a harsh way to
But
move
again,
forward.
But again, nobody's W-2 is gonna be touched, nor
Right.
the pension.
No.
All right, let's really cut to the chase here. I hate to sound like I'm from Massachusetts, but, you know, that's the only thing that's gonna get people's attention, okay? You know, and let's be honest, the only reason that they put these things together is that the state requires it, correct?
I don't think that's true. I think that they're put together as a tool for the town to use. I don't think it has to do with.
It's a budgeting, it's actually a
It's a
budgeting tool.
If it's done correctly.
Correct. It is a budgeting tool.
But what about, doesn't a lot of this get state and federal money, matching money? Some of
Oh,
these
yes,
projects?
yes, it
Some
does,
of
and
it
it's in
does.
there.
So
You
you're
have
not
to have
gonna,
it.
you're not gonna qualify to apply for that unless you can produce this document.
Correct.
So the document isn't put together because
And the
people are
reason,
gonna use it like a recipe, you know, to like, gee, I really need to follow this in order to get where I wanna go.
Correct.
They put it together because they have to.
and the
It's-
reason
it's just
I.
it's a kabuki dance, it's an act, that's all.
And the reason I really wanted the master plan to come was because sitting on the hazardous, whatever it was, committee, one of the first questions they ask is, what's your master plan say? And then they say, are these zoning ordinances, and when was the last time you looked at this zoning ordinance and that zoning ordinance? Unfortunately, we'd matched all those, we'd done all of that. But we also have we have a planning office with 2 part-time people. One that works 12 hours a week, and one that's working, I don't know, 28? And we do second to the highest volume of work, and we just can't do everything. And some things slip. And what we can't slip is any part of the work that's legal, that's gonna get us in court, that's gonna cause problems. So when it comes to the hearings and that sort of thing, we're dead on, and we're doing well. Some of this other stuff, 2 years ago, it did slip. It absolutely slipped. And last year I was on it, and again, they got everything late. So they couldn't do anything until they got it. And by the time they got everything together and had their meetings, and got the report out, it was February, which is way too late, and it was embarrassing, and I was on it. But this year, we're held up by one department. And we need to get on the department, and we need to get the information, and we need to get it done. Because you need to have it, I would think, by the end of this month at the latest,
That is correct.
in order for you to make the
most of
decisions you need to make.
Most of how we built the budget schedule was that those later departments are later in the season, so that we made sure we would have all of that information to us before then.
That's why we wanted the information in by the end of August, and approved by the selectmen by the end of August, so CIP could meet in September, and you could have it for tonight. That was the plan.
Okay, so. Well, I want to just, we need to have an action item come from this discussion, so can you find?
I will find out what the delay is. I know what the delay is.
Yeah. So, and I guess my other question would want to see, how many of those sheets have been signed off on, if all of them have. And
It's my understanding that everything else is in, I was told, when I got on everybody again on Monday for Tuesday's meeting, I was told that everything was in and signed off, except the one.
So the Board of Selectmen has signed off on all of these forms?
No?
No.
No, they're not.
While we were
Okay.
reviewing this, I went through the select board
Yeah.
minutes just to see if they went to, and the only one that has gone to the select board is yours. So I think we just want to make sure.
I think Glenn has them. I think
They
so.
go,
So let me talk to Glenn tomorrow, and let's get them all to Susan so you can get them for Monday night's meeting. Oh, Susan's out.
I've just been texting the Director of Public Works, and he will have the rest of his input by Friday. I would just like to say, I think that it sounds like this process needs a lot of work.
It does.
So to keep picking on one department is not fair when the select board hasn't seen all of the input. So if we can just table that,
Yeah.
okay? And he'll have his input by Friday. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of,
but that doesn't solve
no, it
this
doesn't.
whole
does
debacle.
not.
How can you, so he gets the paper, and he makes a decision of what numbers go into the CIP, and then gives them to her.
Well, so I think that this is, I think we all, I mean, all of the boards that use this and the information, it needs to better process.
Yep.
And we shouldn't be holding, I mean, from the sounds of it, it's across the board, and we need a better process, and we need to evaluate it.
Yep.
We have now raised it in a public meeting. It will get minutes. We will need to have action, like, we will request that the select board discuss this at their next meeting, and that hopefully come back to both planning and budget committee with a plan of how to correct this, because we need this, and
It's an absolute tool that's essential.
right, and we can't get it right. I mean, we did need it for tonight. We should have had it for tonight.
And like I said, that.
Yep, we
That was the
tried to
timetable.
arrange it, we tried to schedule everything out, but we didn't. So we need it by October 30th. That is,
Absolutely.
that it should be the drop dead date for getting this. It may not be in perfect condition, but if we can at least get something to us to help us understand, I think we're a step better than, way better than we were last
So
year.
just for clarification, the holding up department is gonna turn this in, and then we're gonna just plot the number in here, hand it to planning, they're gonna do their thing, and then we're supposed to just, where is the discussion on the CIP? Is there a CIP presentation on our calendar?
So what I understood is that they're gonna get all this information. There is going to be a CIP committee meeting to discuss the sheets and the numbers. That meeting will be pulled together with the appropriate people that are needed to be on there, 2 people from budget committee, so we will need another person from budget committee to attend that meeting.
And then CIP presents it to the planning board.
And then the CIP presents it to the planning board give their input, they present it to select board, and then it will come to us, and we will need a presentation for our understanding. Because there will be, I mean, we kind of talked about this at the last meeting, where there's a CIP plan, and it's mostly, we talk about equipment, we talk about things, but we need to think about the future, which is what the master plan is going to give us, employees. We need to understand hiring, what we need, how we're growing, so that we can budget it into on a long-term basis and not just think about today, but we need to think about 5 years down the road so we don't get a huge bill. And I think that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to make sure that we have that in place. We're not there yet. No. We're going to try to work the CIP plan out, and then we're going to have to work together. So the Budget Committee, Planning Board, and Select Board are going to have to work together to get through this process, to put it into the place and make sure we're all working towards that goal of long-term success for the town of Kingston.
And basically, in the past, it's just been capital equipment that it's been dealing with. Yep. But in reality, it should be far more than that.
Correct. It should be equipment, it should
but
be
it's
hiring.
only been equipment in the past from the day it was started, and it was basically to help with the capital reserve funds and that sort of thing.
Revolving accounts, anything like that.
Exactly.
Yep. It should have everything in there, and that's we should be using.
Yes. Exactly.
Yep.
But without a master plan, they couldn't even approach the rest of it, but other than capital reserve.
I think it's difficult because we've had a lot of change in certain people, so we're asking for it now. We will make sure we work with everyone to make sure we get it.
I mean, when you figure in the last 3 years, you've had all your department heads, major department heads changes, volunteer changes, all kinds of changes, and some things just slip.
Yeah, and we need to get back to them and make them better. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on the planning board budget?
I just want to say, I'd urge you to put in another warrant article for the full-time position.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it takes a few cycles.
Usually takes 3
The
years.
Newton Fire Department went through this and they finally had approval, so.
Almost everything gets approved historically on the third year.
I'd give it another shot, yeah. And also, do we have any ARPA funds left? I don't know if those would, okay, those are exhausted.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We were told the ARPA funds were going to pay for our copier 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But anyway.
All gone. Okay, thanks.
But anyway, it is what it is. Things change.
Question I would have is, could this, let's say $60,000, I assume you have normally had budgeted 2,500 in there. So I don't know if that's plus or minus with the 54, but the point being is that let's say $60,000, could we take 30,000 and do it this year and then obviously
yeah, that's what we're looking at now, and that was, it will be in the cap, that's what will actually end up in the CIP plan, is to do so much this year and so much next year. We figure probably do somewhere between half, maybe one more chapter. No. No, that's the total. The total would be about 60 now, and I'm only saying 60 because it just changed. Yeah. We could do a 30-30, we could do a 32 or 33, something like that. It's all going to depend on, because it's not going to happen in a year.
Right. So this, then you have to decide what the money will pay for it, what you want to do, if you want to update it or whatever. So
exactly.
This 54, or when you get a better figure for it, let's say it's 60, that's what you talked about. That if you get allocated 30,000 this year, then of course you got to put the 30,000 in next year, but if it's half done, chances are it would go through in the following year.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to do it all.
It's got to happen that way. I mean, it's the only thing we can do. I mean, it's just something that we need to do. I mean, the town has a habit of doing things and then letting them sit, like the Envision Kingston and all that stuff. I mean, it just sort of sits. Once it's done, things don't get implemented that people wanted. So it's time. This can't sit. This can't be a report that's put on a shelf somewhere. It's got to be something that you use as a daily tool. Any other questions about the budget?
Any other questions? Any recommendations on changes, or are we going to wait for more information?
I think we should have a recommendation to reduce that to 20,000 for the next 3 years. for the master plan, to draw it out for 3 years.
I would disagree, but I think it needs to get done. I don't know if we could get I don't know. It needs to get done.
Right.
3 years is a
You
long.
just said it can't be done in 1 year.
It can't be done in 1, you could do it in 2, but you're drawing it out to 3 is a lot.
Well, if you have to talk to the department heads, it end up being 5.
Can you, try to get a better figure?
Yeah.
I don't know if that could be.
Yeah, I mean, solid waste just hit us. It was just the newest recommendation from,
Yep,
We have to go to 60 or 58 or 65, at least then we can think about it, and divide that up for at least maybe 3.
right. So I just took a note that,
and we have to put it out to bid anyway.
right, because it's contracted services, and we need to take a look at that and how to spread it out within the budget. Right now, it's at 54,000, increasing total budget over 60%, which is a lot of money, and we need to discuss how to best fit in the budget overall.
So if you do something over 2 years, you could start in November and finish in March, and that's doable. If you start doing it over 3 years and you start in November and finish 15, you'd have to, in other words, you'd have to finish it over 15 months, which may not be practical for the person doing the work.
Yeah.
In the
Right.
police department used to do that. Remember, on a lot of their expenditures, he timed them so that they could be paid off within several weeks of each other. But you start doing it over 3 years, you're talking about 14 months, not 2.
Yeah. So so is there a motion to take this, divide it in 2 over 2 years
Well,
in the budget?
You want more information, Chuck, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, I'm just gonna put that we need more additional information on that number.
Absolutely.
And and we need the CIP. But we talked about that enough, so, and that's in there, so we will get to see that.
Good.
Any other questions for planning board?
Everything else is pretty routine. We rarely go up in our budget, but.
Oh, we didn't say no.
Huh?
We didn't say no.
No, but I mean, we do rarely go up in our budget, so that, when something's really needed, we let you know it's really needed.
Yeah.
And what we really need is a full-time land use administrator. What we really need is a master plan.
And a copier.
And a copier. Well, it'd be nice if people didn't have to work weekends making copies, but we make do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Zoning board.
Hello. All right. So
Zoning board, this is 4191 S2, S3, 31, 32, 34, 35.
yes. So I believe the biggest change on our budget this year is the salary. It is a shared position. As I said with the planning board, I will reiterate, it is a very important position. We would like to see it on the warrant article again as well. So there's that. Most of the line items pretty much remain the same every year for us. We get new copies of books when they change all the zoning. Something always changes every year and they have to reprint the entire book. The legal ads, we always have that budgeted for a line item. However, that is money that we spend and then the applicants reimburse us, so that is a wash by the end of the year. Seminars and training, we have not used the whole budget this year. There is a big conference coming up next month that I know some members want to attend. When we have a lot of turnover, we have some new people, so getting them properly trained is really important to keep them up to date on any changes or procedure.
Is that number in your budget enough to get everyone trained?
I was just informed that the conference in November is 115 apiece. I'm not. I just found out about it, so I have not put it out there to see who else on the board would like to go. I do know that one of our members has expressed interest because he told me about it tonight. So I think it would be good for many of the members to go, especially where, like I said, we have a lot of members that have just come on in the last year or two, lots of turnover on our boards, so I do think it's important. I wouldn't mind seeing it go a little higher for next year, in case this opportunity comes up again. And then the supplies are covered by the town, so.
Any questions for the zoning board?
So do you need that line to be higher?
Because right now that it's at $75.
Yeah, most of the seminars around here, a lot of them are free, and we've attended some of those. This is the first one I've seen in a little while that's this high, so,
So this is just given to me, but I don't know who created the budget
Yeah,
from
I
you
don't
guys.
either.
Robin handed it to me because somebody on the ZBA did it. But I absolutely think that and we've been adding it for other departments or committees, more seminars. So figure out how many people would want to go or you think should go, and then we could budget for it appropriately.
okay.
Yeah.
But that's a this year item, right?
I mean, unfortunately.
Yes,
that is
but
this year,
even
yeah.
for next year, like, because, I mean,
it
it's
comes
coming
up,
up next
yeah.
month, so for next year,
Yeah.
figure out like how many people would want to go, and
then
we can budget
I
appropriately,
mean,
yep.
and I'll just use budget committee for an example. I increased the training budget because we know that the NHMA every year offers a seminar that's about $100 a person. I want the ability for anyone who gets elected to budget committee to be able to attend so they can learn the RSAs and understand their roles and responsibilities. And I just think that's important as we see these turnarounds of our volunteers in our committees that have legal responsibilities, that they have the ability to be trained if they would like to be trained.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or concerns?
I don't know, do you think you could drop that? I'm sorry. The legal ads down to 1,300, since it's a reimbursable item?
I don't see why that would be a problem.
Yeah, legal ads?
The legal ads coming down to 1,300.
Right. In order to spend it.
Yep.
So the money comes in and goes into the income into the town, it isn't credited back against that expense.
Okay, so the year before they spent 1,051, and this year they've only spent 311?
But I think
It all depends on the applications that come in. We've had months where we haven't had any applications. We've had months where we've had a few, we also, when we lost the Carriagetown News, we stopped advertising there. So that was an advertising part of the budget that disappeared. I think that they're still, are they doing in the Eagle Tribune? Because I think we were trying to figure out how to, we were still legally required to advertise in certain places. I'm not sure if they found out if they could get around, if we didn't have to do the newspaper where it wasn't offered, if we could just do it online. But I'm not sure if that's what.
Public hearing, correct? And the public hearing has to be posted in two places.
Yeah.
One at town hall and another one.
Yeah, and I don't know if the town website was the other legal place and they accepted that, or.
Well, that's what the supervisors are doing.
Correct.
We have to
So,
post it.
That
We
might
have
be
to
why our
post
budget
it
was so.
twice, so
Yeah.
maybe there's not going to be so much of an expense because we don't have a newspaper anymore.
I know the Historic District Commission, they don't have to do the newspaper anymore. I mean, you just can't, right? So
Right.
their costs have been reduced for public purposes too.
So we can probably look into whether or not that budget line could come down.
What do you think? Eliminate it, did you say? Or
No, just bring it down. I mean, we still have, I believe that also includes mailers and abutter notifications and things like that.
Oh, like registered letters?
Yes, yeah, which all gets reimbursed, but.
I mean, if you drop that down by 300, you could drop that down and put that into,
And just transfer it over to
Training.
the training.
And keep the budget
I
the
think that
same.
would be,
or whatever you think it is for the training, but.
yeah, I think that would be a reasonable change.
Is that a motion, Claudine, to drop that down?
Oh, sure, I'd like to make a motion to reduce the legal ads line by $300,000.
300,000?
300.
Wow, and the planning board was having a hard time with just 60,000. I'm like feeling.
You need to think big.
You think it's what?
I'm gonna drop motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? Nope. Unanimous vote to
Move some money.
the legal ads to
Oh, no, yeah.
time to go home. Any other?
Hey, this is nothing. We've been in meetings till 1 o'clock in the morning. We
Yeah.
put an end to that.
You're in the wrong committee.
I am on the wrong committee.
Any other questions? All
All
right.
right. I'm glad that was short and sweet for you guys. You can finish up.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, public comment, is there any public comment?
Where's Cynthia?
Other board business, is there anybody has any issues to bring up to the board, questions, concerns? We have another meeting in 2 weeks on October 16th. And let me just make sure everyone's aware. We will have, the library presented tonight because they thought they were presenting tonight. It will be Conservation Commission and Town Clerk and Treasurer on the 16th. It will be short and sweet.
Town clerk and elections, right?
Yep, Town Clerk and, yep. John's gonna run the meeting. I will be not.
Sailing?
I will be sailing, yes, I was sailing. Is that it? Any other questions, concerns?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Aye, thank you.